the main thing we want to kind of really want to know is your film is, Hunters on the Whitefield. It's fantastic. It deals with a lot of interesting themes, and it all really wraps around your incredible storytelling capability. It's, the film's fascinating from the first frame to the end. It's a beautiful film, but there's a lot of themes in there that make people think. As a writer-director, what really brought your mind into this kind of avenue? Because I'd love to hear the creation process of this from the beginning.
Yeah, I was, I read the book. I had read 2 other books by the same author, Swedish author. The first one was the short stories, and I was like, okay, this feels like this guy, he has a tone that can feel cinematic. He creates just kind of interesting, quirky, twisty stories. And then I read another novel by him that I loved, but felt was very impossible to adapt for various reasons. And then I read this one, and it was like, okay, well, here we have a plot that's definitely going to be captivating as a movie. But I was sort of at first, I was kind of blown away, but also scared, and just felt like, whoa, this is a really crazy story. And as I started thinking deeper about, going ahead and contacting the author, I had to really ask myself, well, how, can I do this? And when I say, can I do it? It's more, can I kind of find a way to unlock this story in terms of the characters? And, we're taught through various screenwriting classes and what have you that everyone takes, right? You're like, oh, the characters, motivations, etc. Sorry, there's a sound of a phone, but is that going to ruin things?
No, all good. We can just do a quick splice. No worries.
Going on everywhere.
Good.
But so you're taught to sort of unlock thinking about motivation, etc., right? And you're thinking already about how am I going to communicate with actors? How am I going to convince actors? And this book gives you nothing. And it took a while for me to really come around to. I reread it many times, of course, and I realized that's the key. The point is there is no good reason why these 3 characters do what they do, which I don't want to necessarily reveal here. But, people can go to extreme measures and extreme behaviors where, if you're really going to try to look at why did they do this, they can explain it in some way, but it's not satisfactory. Why, all the violence and all the war and all the things going on in the world, I'm not necessarily feeling like I can understand why certain leaders make certain decisions, and people, down on the ground, so to speak, make certain decisions. And you can ask yourself, what would I do in that situation, et cetera. But this was really a story that spoke to that, the sort of absurdism of our human condition, for lack of it. I don't want to sound highfalutin, but it's really about, sometimes I can feel like an alien in my own life. Like, we're surrounded by what feels like insanity on a daily basis.
Oh, yeah.
Many ways, no matter what your beliefs are, I think most people feel that way. People have different interpretations as to what is the cause of the insanity.
Sure.
But I felt like this book just said something I interpreted it as, there's clearly something within us that's allowing us to sort of constantly cross boundaries and do crazy stuff. And I've always been interested in these questions of like, would I be able to kill anyone, kill for any particular reason? What would it take? And this was like a way to be able to tell that story with many other, then it brings in these other themes about nature but it's really also about human nature and what is it that makes these characters, do this. So then I decided, okay, this is really why I want to tell this story, other than exciting and suspenseful story, and it also has this aspect of, this layer of nature and our place in nature and how do we, function within it. But all those things are intertwined with also how do we function with each other as a group, That's what I liked.
No, it was beautiful. And I love that you said that, because I found myself thinking the same thing. What would I do in a situation like that, right? It does. It opens up your eyes. And I love that you present it to the audience in that way, because you start to find yourself in that situation, and it does start going through your brain. How would I handle a situation like that? And you told that so masterfully. I mean, the storytelling, the actors, everything worked where you really thought that if I was there, it'd be a little bit scary in a way. It's
It actually reminds me of that we're all animals and we have this thinking brain and these morals and construct that we live within. But given circumstances may make you tap into that inner animal that we all are.
Yeah, it's about like that tension between our inner animal and our instincts and what those are, which I think, I don't know, I'm not a psychologist, but it feels like a lot of our worst behaviors are driven by emotions, right? Whether the emotion is fear, and what kind of fear? Fear of being left out, fear of being a nobody, fear of being weak, or just fear of being alone, fear of being unloved, whatever those things are, right? And then, so there's a tension between that, but also our nature of wanting to create rules and creating the structure, I think, to satisfy our minds that, what we're doing is completely rational. So we build the construct that's like explaining our behavior, but really it's a bad explanation a lot of times. and that's what I love in the story too, which is from the book right there. Like they talk a lot about the rules, one of them is teaching the other. And I was like, that is interesting. Of course, there are a lot of rules that are there for safety, but I feel like a lot of rules, and rituals we have to really create this sort of veneer of, we got this. We know what we're doing, but we don't know what we're doing.
Absolutely.
I was gonna say one more thing on that note of, this is not your normal wheelhouse with the violence and everything. So was it also a fear that you were facing? Was it some challenge that you wanted to try something new?
That's so astute, because that's actually, for a long time, I thought, my God, am I going to make this movie? It seemed so not me, quote unquote. And I hadn't really thought to, for my first feature, direct a film that had a lot of violence. But then I again thought, well, what if I turn that around and just say, then I'm the perfect person to make this film, because we have seen a lot of films made by people who think, okay, this is cool, I'll direct some violence and it'll be cool or whatever. But if I'm resisting it in some way, then that could be an interesting, I can bring something interesting, maybe different, hopefully, to it. Or at least, in some places I can put in things that make it a little bit different, because we talked a lot about that, me and the actors, like, okay, it's not, I'm not going to direct this. The tone cannot go towards action movie. In the last third act, we have to keep the tone somewhat off kilter in some sense from that. And I wanted them to just have that in there, because they're three regular guys. They're written like they're supposed to be, they're not superhuman strength, superhuman intelligence. They don't have vengeful motivations. They have to be three regular guys who end up being so caught up in this bubble of the hunt and their own emotions, and we've seen like what people can get to and arrive at in their minds when they're in kind of insulated environments, right? So we talked about it both in the aspect of like making analogies to addiction, because we talked about like the sense of that the hunting becomes a rush, and that is something that is a little bit part of the book. It's like the feeling of when you have one split second when you can decide whether to kill that animal or spare the animal's life, can give a sort of rush, right? And so we talked about that, the rush feeling of it, and then you want more. But we also talked about it just in terms of, when you're shut off from other people and the outside world, you start to kind of adapt yourself to the people around you and whatever their behaviors are.
That is so well put, so very true. And talking about behaviors and following rules and setting things up like that, you also you took this from a book, you transcribed it to a screenplay and created this beautiful piece of art. How was it working with the author? Because that's probably very interesting, right? You have a responsibility to take somebody else's story while also making it your own. How was that process for you as a writer-director?
This was like Hopefully, if I ever got to the book, I can have this experience again, because it was the absolute ideal. I mean, it was a gift. The author just trusted me. He said he did not put any limits on things. He didn't require that I vet things with him beforehand. He said, go do your thing. I ended up, keeping the plot mostly the way, I mean, almost the large aspects of the plot are, I don't know how many, over 90% from the book. And then there's some details that I've added. And of course I had to take some things out, but not much. But the big change that I made, which he was cool with, was the characters. Because he's written a book that's very kind of at a distance, at a remove from all three characters. You're observing them and they're all equal. They're all friends with hunting experience. And I was like, I was trying to work with that and just felt like, okay, you could make that movie, but I didn't feel like it would be the best that I could bring to it. And I really wanted to make one of the characters younger and sort of a novice coming in, and also being in a hierarchical sense under, he's the employee of one of the other guys. So that was his reason for wanting to come to sort of please, impress, whatever he could do to get in with the boss. I found that to be a good way to bring the audience in and may hopefully start to feel like, okay, this is the guy I can sort of latch onto. And then I wanted to try to subvert that, pull the rug out from under when you're like, oh, I like this guy. And then you're like, what? Yeah.
No, and that's brilliant, because you're absolutely right, because it gives you somebody relatable. Anybody could be that particular character because you're, kind of an outsider in a situation.
Yeah.
And you're learning. So that is the perfect character to kind of latch onto when you start watching it. That was so well put. I think that was fantastic. You set it up that way.
Yeah, I think it worked. And I'm just grateful to the author forever that he was, that he didn't, So maybe that's unusual. I don't know. I'm just lucky right now. I'll count my blessings.
That's a beautiful thing. Now, you've been around this business. You wore a lot of different hats in the business, and now your theatrical feature debut is at Tribeca. That's phenomenal. I mean, this is a huge, major accomplishment. And for somebody that has been in the business, and you have jobs for production assistant, to line producer, and now your first feature as a director is at Tribeca. I mean, how does that feel for you? Really, congratulations. Because that has been a life's work to get to here. I mean, it must feel so good for you.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, it's great. And it was great that I got the opportunity to, I never set out to adapt a novel. I've been working on original screenplays for a number of years, and in various stages of development. They just I've dropped working on them. One or two taking place in the States, where I live, and then a couple taking place in Sweden, where I'm from. And it's been going back and forth between working, to make a living in the film business and in production. So it's just, it was just kind of a fluke that I said. I've been trying to, I read to try to see. You're hoping you can find material that you can adapt, but you don't have, deep pockets, and you don't really have an agent or somebody who's going to find you stuff. It's been like, okay, well, what are the chances I'm going to read a book that I can actually get, that I can actually option as just a regular person? And so I really lucked out with this one. And it's an older book. It's been around. So, you realize kind of early on when you're in the film business, like, new books that are coming, they're being covered by agencies. You're not going to have a chance to get anything if it gets well reviewed.
Sure.
So I've been like, let me focus on reading older stuff. And also Swedish stuff, Sweden, because of the Nordic noir and the popularity of that, that genre is very well covered even by American companies, I'm sure, and British and what have you. But if you're reading other stuff that's older, that isn't necessarily falling under that genre, then maybe you can look out.
No, it seems so special for someone, because they always say reading the book is better than the movie, because you can see your vision versus the director's vision. But you took your vision from reading the book and then also applied it as a director. So that's got to be very special for you.
Yeah, it is. It was really great, and it was a fairly quick process for as adaptations go and try to getting to the green lighting of the, the funding and all that. So we were lucky in so many ways. And I've been around the block with projects where you're like, oh, trying to wait, just even waiting for people to read, especially in the States, can take forever. In Sweden, things can move a little faster because it's smaller. And you still need to work hard to kind of make the inroads and contacts, but no, it's been great. And I hope to keep working. I mean, I'd love to keep making stuff there and here because, I have both places sort of feel available to me.
I mean, really, you are a phenomenal director, really. And for somebody that has been in the business for this time, has that always been a goal of yours to tell a story like this, to be a director? That was really what the end goal was, to be that director, to get to that place. That's great.
I just didn't, nobody, actually, I was going to say, nobody told me, it would take this long if I went this route. But I actually did query a lot of people. When I started, I'd been working on like music videos and commercials and stuff when I first started. And then I pretty quickly got an internship on my first feature film, and it was a Spike Lee film. And when I was working in the camera department, and I asked a lot of the crew, because I immediately knew, like, okay, I love this. This is where I belong. I should be working on movie sets. You kind of know. And when you've worked a long time on movies, you see that when new people come in as PAs, you can right away spot after about a week or two, the people who don't, shouldn't be in the business. And I'm not saying this against them. They know themselves. People are like, I am not standing on a corner in the rain, or, this is humiliating. The people who are like, I feel humiliated. Why do I have to bring coffee to a cast? That's not the thing for you.
Yeah.
Even if you think, because they're like, oh, I really want to be a producer. I really want to be a director. It's like, yes, but it's a group endeavor. I'm directing. I have as much respect and a treat, the person who is bringing coffee, who is the intern, who is standing in the rain and can't even see what we're shooting all day.
Yeah.
I know what that's like because I've done that job. And so I have so much respect for everyone. And I made sure, when I was making this movie, I talked to all the interns. We had a lot of interns because we had so little money. We had a lot of interns doing jobs.
That's great.
Nice.
And I told them all, like, I have done this job that you're doing. You are integral to this movie. We could not make this movie without you. I wanted them to know that's for real. Like, this movie doesn't work without you all. And they've been super, they were very inspired and super happy. But, so what was I going to say? Oh, so I asked people, what should I do now? I want to be a director. Should I keep working? Because people are telling me early on, like, we'll hire you if you want to work. We'll hire you as a PA after this job. Or should I go to film school? Right? And so now, of course, in retrospect, it's like, well, what do I think? I'm asking people who are working on a movie. Most of them had not come up. When you talk to general crew members, they often have not gone to film school.
Oh, yeah.
The majority of them were like, oh, you don't need to go to film school. You should work. And I have to say, of all the friends I have who went to film school, I feel like a lot of them got to directing sooner. Then it's taken, and I'm not alone. And, I also have other friends who decided to go the route I did. And it tends to not be an easy road because, nobody, if you get good at what you do in whatever department, people want to see you as that. They're not going to be like, oh, let's transfer that to directing. Directing is always a position all unto itself. And no one is like, yeah, I can see you or you as a director from other departments. They just don't. And I get that because it is very different. But when you come from film school, if you've been in the director's program, you're like, these are the things I've done. And you go, maybe try to get an agent, whatever, and you try to do that. So that is probably the smarter road. But I'm still, I'm grateful for all the opportunities I've had to work with amazing directors. And I've just tried to learn as much as I can and kind of see what they're doing, what I like, and, about what different people are doing. And then when I knew, okay, when I get the chance, I'm going to try to apply this, both creative things, but also just how they are like running their sets, how they are with people. You learn from all that. And that's something that you have over, that you wouldn't get going to film school, obviously, because I've worked with a lot of super experienced people So I get to actually, emulate the experienced people as opposed to, the film school students. So that's been good.
No, that's
Nice.
really phenomenal. And what always really interested me was I even saw you did some line producing. Was the line producer ever coming out in your head saying, you might be going a little over budget over that's you're trying to create this
Impossible to ever wash it away.
Yeah.
That's definitely mainly an advantage because I can look at the budget and prep and say,
Sure.
You know what, we can cut this, but we need to add here. So I can think like that. The thing I had to be careful about is I'm not the line producer now. So
Yes.
I am the director. I shouldn't be, kind of killing my own ideas before I put them out there because I'm like, oh, I can't afford this. I should just allow myself to think creatively and let somebody else tell me no. That was sometimes, even in the writing stage, I'm writing, thinking, okay, what are we likely to be able to get? Okay, we're not going to be able, can we do this in camera or does it have to be a VFX? Okay, so I'm thinking through it all and it's both good and bad.
No, that's fascinating because it's great to see somebody that could wear all those hats. Really, I mean, it shows the talent that you have, and really, obviously, your talent as a filmmaker is phenomenal. I love the movie; everything is fantastic. Yes. But what's so impressive about you is the integrity of a person that you have. It seems like you really care about the people around you. The way you treated your interns, your production assistants, those people on your sets, say so much about the person you are. And that's so important. It's so good to see somebody with that kind of heart and integrity get this type of success. Really, congratulations on that.
Thanks. But I have to say, that's not something that was like always there. It's also been a growth process.
Sure.
The result of me being a little older, being much more comfortable in like, I know what I'm doing. I have confidence in this is my job enough that I also have some energy to think about the other stuff. Because I think when I was younger, I would have just been like, this is stressful. We're over this, we're over that. And I would have maybe not been able to extend myself to, so it really came from the confidence of, and a lot of the prep that we had done, me and the DP and the AD, to really be like, okay, we know what we're doing. And then you don't have to start screaming at people because you're stressed, because you're like, okay, these are things I have no control over, let it go. These are things I can help, So all those things also just came with experience. And it was just a good timing for that.
Sarah, so well said. Before we get going, we have a lot of younger listeners that are rising filmmakers. Any quick words of advice you would give somebody that is breaking into the business? Because it's tough to always say that and kind of paraphrase it, but you've done a lot in the business, and I'm sure your advice would be valuable to these listeners.
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of things. So it sort of depends what the specific question is. It's hard to think of like one or two overarching things like this. Let me think.
Well, I would say then, let's say a young filmmaker like yourself, where you use the example of film school versus getting onto the set, when you can kind of take that path, when you have a fork in the road in your career, should you have steadfast? Should you follow kind of the wallet? Should you follow your heart? Because that's a difficult situation. Which path do you go down?
I mean, I think if you can afford, part of my decision-making actually was also that I felt I couldn't afford film school. But if you can afford it, I think go to film school. I would recommend that, even though like I said, I've benefited greatly from all my years working in film, in bringing that into my directing. But I think I think it takes longer. I think generally you have a better route in. And the great thing, what I've told some young people in film school that I've met and talked to is, really, and I think most film school students do this naturally, but like build those relationships with those people there, because, I came out, I have a lot of experience, but I still, and I, working, I know a lot of people in the business, but they know me as these other jobs.
Sure.
Descriptions. And so when I come with a script, it's not a natural that producers weren't like jumping over themselves to read my script, or because they're like, oh, you're that AD that I worked with, or that,
Yeah.
So film school also is great because you are working together and you come out of there and it's like, okay, you're a producer, you're a director, you're a DP. Let's band together and keep working together, and you can build that. So I would say that's a great thing. But like I said, there are some advantages to working on films, and maybe you can try to do both, even like when you're off film school in the summer, try to get on sets and work on set. And I do think you know, knowing what everyone does. I mean, it's benefited me so much in like, I can stand on set. I mean, I'm just so relaxed in knowing, okay, this setup is going to take 45 minutes. Exactly.
Yes.
I know it's going to take, I know, so I can look at the day and, you know, all those things that allow me to make decisions in a, you know, considered way. But other than that, I would just say general, like way broader is if people want to work in film, whether you go to film school or not, I mean, you must watch movies. I'm surprised how many young people I meet who I feel like who have been to film school sometimes have not watched, like you mentioned, you throw out like classic movies, like haven't seen them. It's like you should be watching movies constantly, I think. I mean, I think,
Yeah.
you know, maybe some people can come in and they can just have some kind of savant, like, I'm going to make this kind of movie, and they just do that, even if they don't have a film history. That could be cool. But I also think, like, I'm in it for the love of movies. And so watching like broadly and deeply back into film history, I think that's part of the joy of it.
Fully agree with you. Really, Sarah, you are a phenomenal person. We have to thank you so much for coming on the show. It's really everything you're doing is fantastic. I'm just proud to have you on because your journey has been phenomenal. To have this debut again, Hunters on the White Field, to premiere at Tribeca 2024. What an accomplishment. Really, it is so amazing to see somebody go on that journey, because to me, you're inspiring. Really, you are. It is fantastic what you have accomplished. Very proud to have you on the show. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, guys. And again, this is the Live Your Dreams podcast. I'm Joe Gawalis.
Chris Victor.
Thank you again, Sarah, so much for coming on. Hunters on the White Field, Tribeca 2024. Congratulations, and we'll see everybody next week. Thank you so much.
Thank you.